Pushkin. Hello. Welcome to Smart Talks with IBM, a podcast from Pushkin Industries, iHeartRadio, and IBM. I'm Malcolm Gladwell. This season, we're diving back into the world of artificial intelligence, but with the focus on the powerful concept of open, its possibilities, implications, and misconceptions. We'll look at openness from a variety of angles and explore how the concept is already reshaping industries, ways of doing business, and our very notion of what's possible. I'm particularly excited for today's guest, Brian Ryerson. He's Senior Director of Digital Strategy at the U.S. Tennis Association, helping to oversee one of the most iconic events in the world of sports, the U.S. Open. Brian sat down with Pushkin's own Jacob Goldstein, host of the podcast What's Your Problem? A veteran business journalist, Jacob has reported for the Wall Street Journal, the Miami Herald, and was a longtime host of the NPR program Planet Money. IBM has been the official technology partner of the U.S. Tennis Association for more than 30 years, and the more recent evolution into generative AI has enhanced the world-class digital experiences that help more than 15 million fans from all over the world enjoy the U.S. Open Tennis Championships. In this episode, we will explore how generative AI is being used to generate match insights, spoken commentary for match highlights, and post-match summaries at scale for fans to enjoy through the U.S. Open app and website. We'll explore how these AI solutions enable the editorial team to cover more of the tournament than ever before, bringing fans even closer to the game they love. And we'll learn more about one of the engines behind this AI-powered content creation, a large language model from the IBM Granite family, which is trained and maintained using the Watson X AI and data platform. Okay, let's dive in.
Brian, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Can you say your name and your job?
Yeah, I'm Brian Ryerson. I'm Senior Director of Digital Strategy at the USTA.
Dumb question. What's the USTA?
The U.S. Tennis Association.
And tell me about the USTA. Like, what is it?
Yeah, so the USTA is the governing body of tennis in the U.S. Our mission is to grow the sport of tennis across the U.S. at all levels. Really, I would say we're more like a health and wellness company where tennis is the means to health and wellness. And then the U.S. Open is kind of our tentpole event that happens every year in Flushing Meadows and is really our chance to showcase the sport of tennis at its highest level to fans all around the world.
Yeah, I mean, the U.S. Open, I assume most people know this, but it's Grand Slam. It's one of the, 4 biggest tennis tournaments in
Correct.
The world.
Yes, yeah. Every year, we especially the past couple years, we've seen immense growth. And, we are very hopeful this year. And our big goal is to have over 1 million fans on site during the 3-week window this year. So it's an amazing event. I always say it's a food and wine festival where tennis is the main attraction. And it's a really fun, unique atmosphere.
How did you get into the tennis business?
It's a great question. It's not where I thought I'd end up, especially being there for 14 years. So I was a marketing and technology major in school, and I also played college lacrosse, and sports was always a big part of my life and always wanted to be in the sports and entertainment world. I'm here from the New York area. This is where I grew up. So I moved back home and had a few friends who worked there, and I started out more on the numbers side of things and really digital analytics. It was really the start of when Facebook and Twitter was just starting and digital marketing and all of that. And, I went to my first US Open not really knowing what to expect. And again, I think the atmosphere kind of captivated me and hooked me in. And I've been there now 14 years.
And so your title is digital director. What does that mean? What's your job?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one because it's tough to explain to folks who are not in the weeds on all things US Open or even in the sports world. But really, I oversee all of our consumer-facing digital properties. So that's the usopen.org, our website built by IBM, as well as our mobile app. I oversee our content strategy, our sponsorship integrations. So really anything consumer-facing that happens on the web is under my purview. Even some of our new platform extensions and gaming and things like that. Anything that you can physically interact with is kind of under my purview.
And so you've been there now for 14-ish years, which in the digital world is a long time. How has that sort of digital experience of sports changed over that time?
Yeah, it's obviously grown. digital now is what we say and what my team says. It's the number one way to engage with fans that can't make it to the event, as well as those fans who are at the event, and how do you enrich their stay. So it's really kind of, you're tackling multiple fan personas. It's the international fan who's staying up late to watch in other countries, to the fan here who's maybe watching on broadcast and we go in and accompany and enrich that broadcast with new stats and insights, to the on-site fan who bought a ticket and maybe doesn't know what match is happening on what court. We do have 20 plus courts happening at a time with all different matches. So really try to help all fans navigate the US Open the best way possible.
And so, what are some of the sort of problems you're trying to solve? What are some of the hard things about your job?
Yeah, obviously, technology changes at a rapid pace, right? So I think part of it is, how do we stay on the forefront of that? And how do we do that in the best way and make the best fan experiences possible and the best user experiences possible? That's always kind of driving factor number one. Then number two, it's understanding and listening to our fans and what kind of content they want. You'll hear me talk a lot about storytelling. I feel like there's a lot of storytelling that happens around the US Open that we really want to bring to fans. And that can be as simple as storytelling of what's happening today and what you should be watching, to maybe it's your favorite players and what's going on behind the scenes with them, to even introducing, I want to say, the casual fans to who they should be watching, why they should follow certain players, and more bringing that player's story to life.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like almost the whole point of sports is to create stories for us to follow, right? They're engineered to be stories. It's
exactly.
This thing is happening in front of you and there are two antagonists and the stakes are high and you don't know how it's going to end. It's built to be a story.
Yeah, and that's the main challenge of the job, is you can plan, but once you get on two players on court and you don't know what that outcome's going to be, it's now sitting and waiting and watching, and you become a fan yourself. And then it's, how do you really captivate that story, and how do you narrate it, and how do you translate that to fans?
And it's you kind of have to do it in real time, right? The whole point of sports is you don't know what's going to happen.
Exactly, and that's the excitement. And it's also, there's so many different types of fans. There's the fans who want a lot of enriched data and they're tennis nerds, for lack of a better way of saying it, and that they really want to dive deep into the intricacies of the game, versus the casual fan who maybe just wants more of this high-level storyline of, what does this mean? Why is it important? So it's really trying to figure out how to deliver that at scale and really help fans get what they're looking for and the type of content they're looking for.
So are there specific examples of, how fan feedback has led to specific features, digital features you build? Are there particularly popular features you've come up with? What are some specifics?
Yeah, some low-hanging fruit type things that came from fan feedback is simple things sometimes, like managing time zones of when matches start.
A persistent problem for those of us who work across time zones, right?
Exactly. And we do have, like I mentioned, 20 plus courts happening at a time. So it's a lot to follow. And how do you translate that to a fan, whether it's to their native language or to their time zone or things like that? So that's one thing that came through fan feedback. And another one, a 3 to 5 hour match, especially when you're having 20 plus of them happening at a time, is there's too much for one person to follow. So how do you start, from an editorial perspective, really helping with that storytelling and guiding a fan to all right, whether there's an upset about to happen, or here's your matches to watch, or even some of the predictions we're starting to put in, is we really want to guide the fan before a match. Here's where you should tune in, to even after a match of, here's what's happened, here's what's important. And we're really excited with some of the features we built in the last few years that I would say really helps us do that at more scale than what we were able to do with just writers following a match and covering every single match.
So I want to talk a little bit about the partnership between IBM and the USTA. Just tell me about the work you do together.
So IBM is our official digital and technology partner and innovation partner of the US Open. They predate me. It's a 30-year partnership, and it truly is a partnership. So I view the IBM consulting team as an extension of my USTA team. So we work with them year round. They design, develop, and deliver the digital properties. They help us provide the tools to create content, to do things at scale. They help us from stats and information, and really help us push from an innovation standpoint to make sure that we are staying on that cutting edge of technology. So I would truly say it's much more than a sponsorship, where it's truly a partnership to deliver that fan experience.
And so what are some of the specific things that you have done with IBM?
Yeah, so I mean, there's countless ones to talk through. Obviously, 30 years ago, they helped us build our first website, and it's kind of grown from there. Over the past few years, I would say I think it was 2018 as we started AI highlights. So that was really when we were able to have all 20 matches going at a single time. We were able to quickly deliver succinct highlights to fans to our digital platform, so they could see highlights for every single court.
Is that video highlights? Is that text summaries? What does that mean?
At the time, it was video highlights.
Okay.
So it was really taking that 3 to 5 hour match, let's say, and cut it down to a 3-minute highlight that could show up within moments after a match ending to our website and our mobile app. So fans could see that all around the world and really kind of get that 3-minute overview what happened in a match.
And was that AI enabled? Was AI a piece of how to do that?
It was. It was probably our first foray into AI back
2018 is relatively early.
Yeah, exactly.
Early for tennis.
Exactly, yeah. It really, I want to say, opened up our ability to, one, again, storytell, but attract new fans too. Is video has actually been our number one growth area since 2018. And I think a lot of that has to do with the scale of how we deliver that content.
Using AI and being able to deliver the sort of video highlight reels at scale.
Yeah, and do it quickly, right? We've always had highlights, but it was a manual process where you had a video editor cutting through a 3-hour match, selecting the right scene, stitching together. It would have to get voiced over, etc. We really have used AI to make it, I want to say, much more efficient and speed up that process and deliver it more quickly to our fans.
I mean, it would be a bummer to get scooped by whatever, NBC News or ESPN or whatever. I'm sure they're all your partners and you love them. But obviously you want to have the video first, right? It's your match.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to us as being the USTA is ensuring that it's not just the main marquee players, that every player and all those storylines, and that whether it's the main singles draw to our mixed doubles, etc., they all need highlights and they all have their own stories to tell. And how do we do that at scale? It was something that before we had that product was not something we were able to do.
Great. So let's talk in some more detail about what you're working on. Let's start with the app. Tell me about the US Open app and the companion website.
Yeah, so I'll start with the app, and I feel like they serve similar needs, but they're a little different in their own respective manners. Is the app, everybody has a phone in their hands at this point. The app is kind of their guide to, when I say 1 million fans on site, we view the app as we want that to be their on-site guide and companion.
1 million? Let's just pause on 1 million fans on site, right? Because like a big professional, whatever, an NFL game or something, that's like 100,000.
Yes.
This is 10x that.
Yeah, in a 3-week window, in a very succinct, tight, action-packed window. There's a lot of action coming through.
A lot of logistics. Okay,
yes.
So keep going.
So the app, whether it's finding the schedules, the live scores, what's happening on court, that's really the focus point of the app. And what we're really focused on this year is how do we build in some of those match summaries into the app, into our Slam Tracker experience. So again, before a match, that kind of match preview of here's maybe if you have a ticket, here's what to expect. Here's, our likelihood to win, who we are predicting. So you can kind of get some information heading in. And then after the match, it's more of what just happened, what it means for the rest of the draw, who they're playing next. Is this the first time this has happened, et cetera, and really enriching that experience as well. So the app is, one, your guide to what you should be watching, but also then giving you that insights and context to what's happening on that court as you're watching.
It's like the commentator in your pocket.
Exactly.
So you used a phrase in there as if I already knew it. And I love the phrase, but I want you to talk more about it. That phrase is Slam Tracker.
Yes. So Slam Tracker is our long-standing live scores, I'm going to say match center. It is where every single data point for every single match lives, and it helps showcase what's happening in a match. I say it's our broadcast companion. So if you're watching live, it's our in-stadium companion. And it's also the best thing to have if you aren't able to watch.
And so like I'm on the app and there's a thing called Slam Tracker and I tap Slam Tracker. What do I see on my phone when I tap Slam Tracker, midday when the tournament's happening?
So before match, that's where you get a lot of pre-match content. That's where those live kind of our predictions, our likelihood to win lives within that. So likelihood to win essentially pulls in a bunch of data points So past matches, how many times the players have played against each other, even some punditry and other written articles that maybe our editorial team put out, and really kind of puts a prediction out there.
And so it's just a percentage chance?
Yes, exactly. But it uses millions of data points to come up with that.
Yes.
So it really helps you kind of understand what you're getting into for that match. During a live match, it is every single point, so point by point scoring, as well as in-depth analysis and point commentary. We also this year have a live visualization that accompanies that will really help bring the match together. And what I mean by that is it uses our ball tracking technology to really showcase the match in near real time, so within seconds delay of where the ball's being hit, where the players are, and really bring a visualization to life and layered stats and data on top of that.
Is that sort of like when I'm watching a match on TV and there's like a close call, is the ball in or out, and they do that thing where they kind of show a sort of video game version of where the ball landed? Does it look like that?
It's like that, but for every single shot. So it's not just those close ones. It's our first foray to bring that match to life.
And so what do I see on that kind of view that I don't see from watching the video?
Yeah, so one, you'll be able just to see more of the ball trajectory and where the ball is being hit, but then you can also start layering things and stats and insights on top of that. So how many times has player A hit the ball on a certain baseline? How fast are they hitting it? Maybe their serve percentage in a certain side of the court, etc. So you can really start layering in for the ones that really want to dive deep into
It's for the nerds. It's the information rich.
Exactly. It's the strategy of tennis. It really should be an interesting way to slice and dice a match.
It's remarkable how the USTA is leveraging AI to enhance fan engagement and deliver immersive experiences both on-site and online. Brian's emphasis on storytelling really underscores the evolution of sports marketing. The Slam Tracker feature particularly caught my attention. It's essentially bringing the excitement of a tennis match to life in your palm, moment by moment. As someone who appreciates the narrative intricacies of sports, I find it compelling how AI helps predict and analyze matches in real time.
Tell me about the AI commentary feature.
Yeah, I know I mentioned AI highlights back in 2018. It's now progressed for us. And again, if we go back to before we had AI highlights, to have a highlight ready for the site, it was a video editor cutting the highlight, it getting voiced over, and then being published to the site. And it took probably an hour plus for that highlight to really be created. Now with AI commentary, not only are we creating and cutting the highlights using our AI technology, but it's now using all the data points that we have around the match, whether it's our live scoring data, our ball trajectory data, etc. And it's really creating a script to help storytell around that match. That's all using watsonx technology. And then using text-to-speech, we're able to actually then create the commentary on top of that, which all happens now within minutes. So our team's able to now create fully voiced highlights for every men's and women's singles match to our site within minutes.
So I know there's a new feature you're working on for this year called match reports.
Yes.
What are match reports?
It's our ability to succinctly tell the story of a match. So everything that happens in 5 hours within that match, down to a couple paragraphs that really helps a user understand or a fan understand what just happened. Again, some key stats, what's upcoming, really help us with that storytelling. In the past, when we have 22 courts happening at a certain time, we would have to pick and choose which stories we think or which matches we think are going to have the best stories. And that's a really hard thing to predict from an editorial perspective. With our match reports now, we'll be able to have full coverage of every single match during the main draw.
So, of course, I want to talk about generative AI. How could we not talk about generative AI?
Of course.
What are you working on with generative AI?
So Match Reports is the prime example of it. So Match Reports will be completely using watsonx generative AI technology. And really, again, to us, it's how can we do that storytelling at scale? Tennis is such a data-rich sport. All sports have data, but tennis has a lot of shots and different shot types and ball trajectory and live scoring data and umpire chair data and crowd and all that factoring in. Generative AI really helps us take some of that structured and unstructured data, really one, organize it in a way, but then help us quickly tell that story at scale to all of our fans. And I think we're really just starting to scratch at some of the capabilities, and we're really excited about where we're being, but we also see the opportunity of even how we can grow to new fans and new fans around the world using generative AI in the future.
So I'm curious, and you alluded to this a moment ago, but I'd like to talk a little bit more about it because it seems interesting as a technical problem, right?
Yeah.
Is the nature of turning tennis matches into stories, which is fundamentally what we're talking about here in different ways, in different media, is about taking both structured data, right? Like the stats, points, sets, matches, and also unstructured data, right? Like commentary and articles and the kind of fuzzier parts of storytelling. And so I'm curious how AI kind of helps you manage both the structured and the unstructured data.
Yeah, so I think the structured data is pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
But when you get into the unstructured data and some of the punditry, that's where you get more of the opinion pieces into it, like a specific player matchup. This player always plays well against so-and-so, or they always play well at night, or they're a fan favorite, and the crowd, adrenaline and the crowd being behind you can really motivate you to play a lot better. So it pulls in all those unstructured pieces and helps us really put some more rigor around it and help add and enrich our storytelling with it.
And so I'm curious, when you're starting to use generative AI over the past few years, what were your concerns going into that?
I think our biggest concern is ensuring that, one, factually it is correct, because it's only as good as the data you feed in, and how do you really ensure that your model's working right and that the output and the data you're feeding it matches the output. And how do you do that at scale? So we do have a lot of human intervention. That's where the IBM consulting team, they're on site with us for those full 3 weeks, really helping us review everything. And we're constantly learning, especially early in the tournament. And I would say the other big concern, again, it goes around to the data, is what data do we have available that is trustworthy? So, we feel very confident with the data that comes off of court, but when we get into that unstructured piece, what are the right data sources? How do we validate those data sources? And how do we ensure that they're accurate? Because the data that has to go in has to be accurate for the output.
So how do you do that? That's the concern. How do you address it?
Yeah, so I think there's a number of tools that we use, all within the watsonx umbrella. We do a lot of training with the IBM team, so we have to constantly train and retrain that model. I think the other piece that we're doing is, again, as we're creating that content, and we have the IBM consulting team on site helping us with that, is as we see things and we see outputs, it's refeeding that back into the model to make it better for the next time. So it's a constantly learning process that we're undergoing.
So I want to talk about scale.
Yes.
You have 22 different courts with matches going all at the same time. You're trying to, approximately instantly generate summaries of all these matches in something like real time.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, in particular, how the IBM models you're using, the IBM Granite models, are helping you scale.
Yeah, so I think one of the big learnings we had with IBM Granite models too is that we're able to run it, against last year's tournaments and see what the expected outputs could be, and really help train that model heading into the tournament. Because as we talked about in the beginning, is we can plan, but once two players get on court, the outcome is unknown. So how do we really run it through its paces and really make sure that whatever that outcome could be and whatever that scenario is, whether it's a fifth set tiebreak that happens, or maybe there's a fault at the end of the match, or something that we're not anticipating, that we have that accounted for and that the A won't throw off that output. So we really try to think through every scenario, which is sometimes difficult, right? Because again, live sports is the unknown. That's what makes it fun. We do spend a lot of time thinking through potential scenarios and ensuring that we have the right data sets and the model to predict that.
Tell me about match reports and the generative AI model you're using for that.
Yeah, so match reports will be new for us this year. So we're in testing right now. So we're really excited around it. But the model that we'll be able to use using Watson X will use a bunch of different parts of the suite of tools, meaning that, again, it'll taking some of that punditry and the unstructured data and the editorial spin. It'll take our structured data as well. And really, what we're working on right now is figuring out the right prompts for the AI to really ensure that it tells the right structured story, meaning what just happened, right? And so our recap is pretty standard. Here's what the data is telling us: who won, who lost, how many sets. Here's the score.
That's the structured data part. That's the easy part.
Yeah, and then really where it gets exciting is then what does this mean? Meaning what's upcoming. So there's all these different scenarios. When you get into 254 players and a large draw, this allows us to distill that down and really tell kind of what could happen upcoming. The AI helps us do that at scale.
So I want to sort of generalize for a moment to talk about kind of, broader challenges with AI and how you've solved them. A lot of generative AI pilots fail because the data quality isn't high enough, because the risk controls aren't there. And so I'm curious how you dealt with those problems and are dealing with them.
Data quality, again, we feel confident with the data that is supplied from the US Open and from the USTA, right? So we have, again, that's our structured scoring data and all that. I think what we're constantly looking at is when we get outside of our known sources and out to third parties, is that's where a lot of the testing and model work happens. So we pull in different data sources and really try to work through how it changes that output. Again, some of that comes down to where it's an open model and the transparency that we have and the learning that comes behind it. That's where a lot of that confidence can come from. And it comes from a lot of testing and feeding it more data. Your second question was a little bit more around the output, I believe, right?
Yeah, and risks, right? So risks, I think of risks more in terms of output, right?
Yeah.
Like the obvious fear is like, what if it says something wrong or inflammatory or whatever? Like, that seems scary.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it was definitely one of our largest concerns when we first took this foray. I would say a lot of that comes through our work with IBM and the IBM consulting team and really ensuring that, again, they're an extension and the partnership there of our team. So whenever we are creating, let's say it's the match report, and we're going to be creating these succinct articles for every single men's and women's single match that happens, is all of those will have manual review and people looking through them for accuracy to ensure that the model didn't hallucinate or make up a fact or fill in the gaps and things like that. That's the first step. And then also when our editorial team goes to publish those to the website, they're going to be checking it as well. So there are manual interventions throughout that to really check that model. But we feel that the ability to do it at scale and with us more to check that is the efficiency problem that we've been looking to solve.
So the USTA and IBM have been working together on digital innovation for like 30 years, from, the first website for the USTA until now. So that's the past 30 years. If you look ahead, what's the next 30?
30 years is a really long time.
How about 3?
Yeah. I think, where I get excited, and I alluded to it in the beginning about how I feel like we're just scratching at the surface, especially with generative AI, and where I see it going is there's a lot of different fans out there. And we're also very cognizant of the US Open that we're a worldwide event and that there's a lot of different fans that we're not necessarily creating content for bespoke, meaning in their native language, or maybe it's in that native player's language and things like that. Is where I get excited is we've seen immense growth with AI highlights and the ability to now do highlights at scale is the ability for us to start creating content in different languages, maybe covering different parts of the match. So maybe you do have that stats junkie who really wants just it's the fastest serve and here's the deep insights versus the casual fan who's looking for more of the storytelling around how a player trains and what leading up to it was like and what it means for them afterwards and things like that. A lot of that takes a lot of time. Now we're able to solve that efficiency problem and do it in multiple languages. We can really create, I want to say, personalized content to a lot more fans all around the world, which, again, helps us grow the sport of tennis.
Great. So I want to finish with a speed round.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, first thing that comes to mind. Complete this sentence. In 5 years, AI will
transform many parts of the business.
What is the number one thing that people misunderstand about AI?
That it's supplemental, not replacing, meaning that it helps with efficiencies, but it doesn't necessarily replace the creativity right now.
What advice would you give yourself 10 years ago to better prepare you for today?
I think it would have been, especially now that we're able to take so much of that unstructured data and past content that we were created to help tell stories, was to, I want to say, archive more of that in a way that we could be using that to help pull from that now. So, we've seen kind of a change in the guard from some of our star players to now new and up-and-comers, and it would be really fascinating to me if there was a way to cross-section some of that and saying, like, what trajectories are certain up-and-coming players maybe following from others. So it's more, I wish we kept more of the content we created back then.
Save the data.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what you're telling yourself.
Exactly.
Save the data.
Exactly.
Well, are you saving it all now?
Oh, yeah, 100%. We learned our
Okay.
lesson. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So on the business side of AI, what do you think is the next big thing?
I alluded to it earlier. I think it's personalization and getting content that's catered to you at scale, whether, that's across the sports sphere or any type of written content or news content. I feel like the ability to really get content catered to the type of fan you are and the insights you have is where we're all headed.
And in terms of your non-work life, how do you use AI day to day?
It's funny. I was just having this conversation with a friend the other day, and we were talking about sometimes when you're starting something new, the hardest thing to do is you have a blank piece of paper or a thought, and how do you get started? Sometimes with these generative models, the easiest thing and the best thing you can do is it helps you get started. Meaning it may not be 100% with that first prompt, but it's that efficiency of whether it's an outline for a new idea or it's a marketing brief you have to write, or sometimes even if it's an email you have to write for a personal something and you're not sure how to word it the right way, it allows you to have a start and then you can edit from there. So again, going back to my efficiency point, it helps you become more efficient.
It solves the blank page problem.
It does.
Brian, it was great to talk with you. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, this was fun. Thanks for having me.
A huge thanks to Jacob and Brian for the deep dive into the cutting-edge innovations transforming the game of tennis. Brian shed light on how the US Open's partnership with IBM is harnessing data-driven insights to reshape storytelling in sports, from AI-generated commentary to match reports. As we look ahead, I'm excited about the possibilities for personalizing content and reaching fans in new ways. The future of AI promises more than just efficiency. It's about enhancing fan experiences worldwide. Smart Talks with IBM is produced by Matt Romano, Joey Fishground, and Jacob Goldstein. We're edited by Lydia Jean Cott. Our engineers are Sarah Bruguer and Ben Tolliday. Theme song by Gramoscope. Special thanks to the 8Bar and IBM teams, as well as the Pushkin marketing team. Smart Talks with IBM is a production of Pushkin Industries and Ruby Studio at iHeartMedia. To find more Pushkin podcasts,